Hello, I'm Auditro.
And I'm Abhinav. Today we are going to talk about how we at Nielsen IQ have evolved our employee first strategy by leveraging people and technology through the use of completely new use cases in ways that we have never done before. COVID hit us like a ton of bricks. Increasing caseload coupled with lockdowns spurring ubiquitous economic impacts. In 2020, around June, after a period of strict lockdown, the economy kept opening up. However, the cases continued their upward trend, with wave 1 still not having reached its peak. This high risk stage posed serious risk to our field teams who were getting back on the field. There was a need to create a mechanism from scratch to monitor and avert risk for our employees. The second wave came with its own set of challenges. Soon after it started, the number of social media messages seeking as well as providing help boomed, and within weeks, it became extremely hard to navigate this information. One had to try several numbers before finding the ones which would actually work, and it kept getting worse as leads started running out of stock sooner and sooner. People were dying even before they could find an ambulance or a hospital bed. And in the initial phase, few of our associates lost their loved ones in a similar manner. We soon realized that we will have to figure a way out to protect our people from this chaos, one way or the other. During the pandemic, we found our answers in two things: the people first culture that we have been fostering and the technological prowess within the organization. Being short of resources, our people form the cornerstone of all our key initiatives. The ability to think outside the box and evolve the process with agility made sure we were on top of the constantly evolving COVID situation in India. Driven by data science, the ability to predict and preempt risk with real-time risk monitoring made sure our employees were safe and protected when on ground. Technology also ensured decision making was informed and swift, along with almost real-time information dissemination. A unique cross-functional COVID PMO team was set up, aided by innovation, data, and technology to drive informed decisions. This team cut through organizational and functional levels while taking charge and collectively navigating the company through the pandemic using an employee-first culture. Apart from a host of programs targeted on employee well-being and health, a dedicated campaign, Break the Chain, was created and put into action. On the technology front, data was collected and collated across multiple independent sources into this first of its kind dashboard. Leveraging data science expertise, a unique scoring mechanism was created. It helped get an understanding of the evolving risk situation across all locations and take immediate associate risk mitigation actions. Additionally, an integrated system leveraging geofencing, command center, and push notification were used outside the business use case for the very first time ever to ensure maximum safety for our field teams. While ensuring minuscule infection rates among our field associates, Nielsen IQ has also donated 4.4 million rupees to the industry to help the freelancers. There are many associated numbers to quantify the impact. However, the real impact is the increased belongingness and the trust that has been voiced and is visible in the employee feedback verbatim.
Early 2021, as we had just begun to think if and when and how we can go back to our offices, wave 2 hit. With it, we had to quickly shift gears from prevention to protection. Our focus became helping our people, their families and friends in finding the medical support they need in the shortest possible time. It all started with a late evening call on April 22nd, followed by a rough plan sketched out at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. By the next evening, we already had a group of 25 people ready to help others, a clear process flow, and a tracker dashboard. So, what would this ZCRT do? Something that many of us were already doing for our family and friends, but now with more structure and discipline, and for people we may not even know. For every request, a companion was assigned who became the Spock for the family. The companion would be supported by a group of commandos inserting the required medical resource on the ground. While we had a standard 12-step process for responding to a request, we kept evolving throughout by discussing our learnings and the challenges we were facing every single day. Also, from the very get-go, we were very focused on optimizing the entire process and had a dedicated digital solutions team for managing dashboards, resource repository, and trend analytics, a war room to focus on the mid-long-term plan, a medical room to monitor and counsel infected employees, and a dedicated communication hub. In the middle of a nationwide crisis, we were able to function only because of a great partnership between people and technology. While the volunteers came with different personal experiences, they shared a common purpose was to fight the pandemic. The energy was magnified by the sense of a community and belonging. People were no longer battling the pandemic alone. And soon, this emotion transmitted to other employees. Technology, on the other hand, made the entire process efficient. We had three dashboards to monitor requirements, to access verified leads, and to track employee infections. These not only made the process swift and transparent, but also made handovers easy in case any of the volunteers had to leave for a personal emergency. Net result, while we have the numbers on the slide showing what we achieved, the biggest impact was possibly witnessed via messages and comments that we were receiving from our employees who benefited from the ZCRT. To closely monitor and guide more than 270 infected employees, as well as to be able to close more than 170 requests for medical support was not an easy task, but the continuous series of best wishes and thank you notes kept us going. So, what are the key takeaways? First, agile methodology could be applied to any sort of work. In a dynamic world like ours, quickly identifying the need to evolve and then to actually evolve is the key. While having a standard process ensures efficiency, having room for that process to change ensures long-term sustainability. Second, our people are our biggest asset. If we can create the right environment, a leader can emerge from any part of the business, irrespective of their skill set or seniority or experience, and we can achieve things which even money cannot purchase. And lastly, while people are the foundation, technology is the enabler for scaling up. Having a dedicated team to focus on tech solutions and new use cases, even in the times of a crisis, is a worthwhile investment.
To conclude, not all initiatives undertaken have the intended magnitude of visible impact. Some are more psychological, thus pose immediate benefit measurement and quantification challenges. However, when people-first initiatives are genuine and a true expression of a company's belief and behavior, then there will always be new ways to support, encourage, and inspire employees.
There's just one expression, wow. And I'm actually moved because I think when you save lives, it brings out a range of emotions. Yeah. Guys, keep flooding my question answer box with questions because this is something that we can all benefit and get inspired about. But I have my set of questions before other people start thinking about it. I picked that up even when I was reading your paper. It was about averting risk and risk mitigation. If you could talk about that, what was that thought about? Because that is a completely different thought, because that is, you never think of that when you're talking about employees and inspiration and engagement. Anybody can take the question.
Michael, do you want to pick?
Yes, yeah. So the first one is more because when we started, we did not know what would be the magnitude of what was about to come. So when we look back, in fact, both Sanjay and I happened to kind of have a corridor conversation in first week of March. What should we do? How should we go about? And we just put together a team. So the first part that you referred is because we did not know what would be the magnitude. We just put together more like any corporates does that in terms of business continuity. And soon, once the systems are in place, what we saw throughout last year or what we saw this year, which was even more critical from a typical COVID perspective, the wave 2 was very strong. So that led to that process wherein everything was already built in. So we had almost a year of experience of a system that was functioning very well. And then we took the advantage of putting together a process. So within the system, there was another process that was built in and that worked for us. So that's how I would put these two things.
Yeah, if I can pick that on from since we had an established PMO, and I think you saw it on the slide as well, when it hit us in April that our internal cases were very high, we suddenly knew we needed to shift focus from, business continuity, of course, needs to happen, but employee well-being is paramount. So because we couldn't deploy huge amount of resources in buying cylinders and all of that, the focus of risk mitigation was purely from the lens of how do we save more employees, how do we really reduce the risks from here on. So therein came the aspect of zonal crisis response team, and we immediately put a focus on how can we repurpose ourselves, reach out to our internal communities, how can we bring in people together, interns, they volunteered, and then with the strong risk mitigation of how can we now within this team repurpose and make sure that employees' lives are completely safeguarded and their families are safeguarded. So I guess that's the risk mitigation angle. There is a situation, but we need to now focus on how not to make it worse. How can we sort of completely restrict it and contain it and make sure that we continue. So that I think having processes and using technology and reaching out to our internal communities really helped us, and recognizing our strengths really helped us.
In fact, Abhinav used a powerful word called the war room, and I think you'll function like a war room.
Yes, we
I
did.
wish that was highlighted and bold in bold thing, because I think that was important.
No, I was going to talk about that. I think that rigor of in that 1 month, the rigor of meeting every day at 7 p.m. It was literally like completely like a war room where we would take stock, and every employee case was discussed in detail. So hospitalized cases, severe by severity, severe hospitalized cases, who are at home, who are away from family, and each situation was discussed at length. And then we would decide, okay, how do we get help to this person. So war room is the only analogy I would use, because one, we were discussing employee cases at great length. Second is also with a vision to what do we need for the future. What is it that we really need. So oxygen concentrators, for example, concentrators were at shortage at that point of time. So what can we tap in? Is there rentals we can tap into? So then we were immediately getting details of rentals that we could tap into. Other resources. Some people were away from home, so they need nursing at home. So how can we put together resources of home nursing services? So that rigor of war room and just that routine everyday meeting every day at 7 p.m., which would go on almost half an hour call, would go on to 1.5 hours as well till 8:30 p.m. That definitely helped the team to really service our employees in this period of crisis.
So the questions are flowing, and I'll take them one by one. You all can decide who can answer that the best manner. This is by Mr. Kalai Raj. Two major challenges seen during COVID: social stigma on vaccination and technology flaw on vaccine shortage. How would we have addressed that? Like a quick answer, if there is,
let me take that up. So that one, what we have done is that that's something we started last year. Those who did get affected by COVID, we made them recount their experience, those who were willing to do so, both on video as well as some people who are comfortable in writing. This was also to help people see what are the concerns people face when they are in that situation and be prepared for it. And something that kind of have built on when vaccine process started, we had our internal social media campaign of getting vaccinated, because and all associates. So and of course, priority was for the field associates, but then that was another way of if a senior leader like, let's say, Sandhya is posting her picture with saying vaccinated. So these are small measures, but that's what. But on top of that, we did get medical practitioners to speak to our associates. Last year, that's something that has continued to break the myths, be clear about what to expect and what type of vaccine, because earlier we had two. What are the differences? So these were, and we got the real experts like from AIIMS and those kinds.
So there's another great question, which I think is interesting, because what we saw is what happened in the initial, and it continues. I know you said that. But Roshan Costa says, what about the challenges that were not related to the second wave? And were there different things that you had a strategy? Because the waves are coming. So what happened in the second wave, and was it like different from what happened in the earlier bits?
I mean, is the question that how was it different, or
no? What are the challenges that were not related to the second wave? I mean, yeah, a bit vague, but was it something that you did now? What I would like to rephrase is, did you do something now which is very, very different from when it started off? What are the new measures and the new actions that you'll have put in place now? Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's entirely, and that probably goes back to your risk mitigation question as well. I think having that daily rigor, that really helped us, like I said, to have the vision and, to make sure what risk mitigation tools we need to put in. For example, we immediately jumped down to sessions of understanding third wave. Like Mahipal mentioned, we got in a doctor from AIIMS to tell us what is, how do we understand third wave better. There was a lot of conversations on mucormyosis going on, right? We got in a doctor to tell us about, what are mucormyosis and what is it that we need to watch out for. Our internal, so like you saw the war room, there is a digital room, there is a communications team. A communications team immediately came together and we put in a COVID website where we had all the information, which is the resources, you would have seen in our paper, we, collated a lot of resources. We had all the internal communications, everything that was like a one-stop shop for Nielsen employees to look at, which was the COVID India, website. So these were just, some of the few things that, we probably did differently. Like I said, PMO at that stage was focused on field and, continuity, business continuity. We deliberately shifted the focus to employees and, their lives and the community and their families. So that was a big lens that we sort of brought in, during the second wave. So the war room analogy and the war room rigor definitely helped us, address it, respond to it better, I would say.
I have a question which is what Rinku Banerjee asked, while it is centered around COVID and risk mitigation and this, what is it that one thing that the employees at Nielsen IQ took away? If I were to say, what they hold in their heart, after all these 18 months, what would that be? Abhinav, would you want to take this question? What is that one thing? He looks younger than all the others. That's why I asked him.
Yeah, Abhinav and Arithro. Arithro's not.
Yeah, Arithro is rather quiet.
That's absolute pillars of this entire initiative, I would say.
What is that one thing? It's not about risk mitigation. What is that one thing that you guys have taken away from all of this?
I think, Priya, just to answer that, I would say the very fact that you are not limited by the position that you hold, by the teams that you work for. It is just that you're motivated by this one very simple goal that you have to help and save lives. I think when you have a cause that big, everybody just jumps in and pitches in. So
yeah, very good. I think you rally around a good cause and you rally around something that is about saving lives, right? And it's not only your life. I think a very, very well answered. And that's why I wanted to hear your voice. That mattered a lot.
Yeah.
Lovely.
If I can just pitch into that one, there was in one of our evening calls, we did a special session on asking the volunteers on what was their calling to join this group. And it was absolutely a very moving, emotional session. Some had lost, their family members, some had been infected by COVID themselves. But despite that, many of them have immediately sort of jumped into the cause because they didn't want to sit back. They wanted to be they felt they were more in control of the situation by being a part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, to sort of supplement to what Abhinav said.
I think a fantastic display of what a higher purpose can do. And if Abhinav felt that is the story that I wanted to hear. Thank you so much.
Yes, I just want to say one more thing that we saw a lot of heroes emerging, what we can call as COVID warriors. And this group that came together this year, and two of our colleagues, Abhinav and Arithro, they are like the real heroes. And there are many more who are behind the scene. And I think I did see a question whether beyond HR, and many of them are not part of HR or legal teams which Sandhya represents. It's a collective group of people who came because they wanted to be.
Yes. And I think that's important. I think it's a collective, right? And it's not one individual who makes this happen. So fantastic, guys. Thank you for this lovely presentation and handling these questions beautifully.